you allow the parameters to change by a lot of bit, not a little bit, and you allow many of the parameters to change simultaneously, nobody can really say what that cosmos would be like. And so it's possible that there are patches in parameter space where you would get different kinds of universes that perhaps would give rise to different living systems. And then each living system in its universe looks around and says, wow, this universe is so special. It must be that there's some kind of, grand design that got us here. But they're all saying that in their own parameter space because they're all making this mistake of only looking in a small neighborhood around the point in parameter space where they exist. So that's point number one. And so part of it is we just don't really know enough to make...
If we turned up gravity a little bit...
And left everything else the same, I agree.
But if we turned it up, to 11, that somehow...
Right.
That might...
Yeah, but what if you
collapse?
Simultaneously turn up the repulsive force that might come from a universe with charged... it's a highly complex problem.
And there might be something about turning up gravity, which necessarily also correlatively turns up this repulsive force.
Conceivably.
Right,
so it's just a fairly complicated problem that you don't want to dismiss too quickly by saying it all goes away unless it's precisely as we've seen. But it is the motivation for the multiverse, another motivation, because one explanation simply would be there are many, 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 many universes in which the parameters have all different values across those many universes. And in most of those universes, the conditions are not amenable to living systems like human beings. But in one of those, or a small number of those universes, the conditions are amenable. And of course, we're in one of those universes because we could not exist in any of the others because the conditions are not correct. The analogy is if you go into a clothing shop and you want to buy a sports coat, and you say, I want to buy a sports coat, and you see only one on the rack, and the person brings it over and it fits you perfectly. You're like, wow, that is so fortunate that it was just the right size to fit me. But if you go into an actual clothing shop, when there's hundreds of different sports jackets on the rack of all different sizes, when the person comes and brings you one that fits, you're not surprised. Of course, there's one among the many that works for you.
Yep.
And so if you have many jackets, it's obvious why one will
up.
fit. If you have many universes, it's also pretty obvious why one will fit the conditions necessary to our existence. And so it is a natural way of avoiding the problem that you're making reference to,